or coming off the unloading bank, washed, filled, sealed, and crated. There is naturally an atmosphere of urgency about the bottling hall. The bottles bustle and jostle each other with impatience for their turn to be filled, while the loaded crates hurry down the conveyor as if anxious to get back on the road again as quickly as possible. The rise in popular favor of bottled beers, particularly during the last 10 years, has shifted the emphasis to this side of the brewer's business. But Whitbreads were amongst the very first to foresee its potentialities. If they were to achieve national sales, it was necessary to establish a complete chain of bottling stores and distributing depots. This is in fact what they have accomplished during the first half-century, forever seeking improvement by adding to their number, by extending their premises, and by installing new plant, new machines labeling 10,000 bottles an hour. Now they own depots, sited to serve both industrial and agricultural areas alike, with their lines of communication never extended beyond practical limits. The benefits of this system to both the wholesale and retail trade are obvious. Any local demand can be met speedily and economically, even at peak trading periods. And the retailer is assured that his supplies will always be in prime condition. He can thus offer an unrivaled range of bottled beers whose names are household from Land's End to John O'Groats. And so along the highways of Britain run the great 80 or 40 barrel tankers, supplying bulk beer to the bottling centres. And a fleet of nearly 300 lorries delivering crated beer to the depots and to the trade. In 1 year, these vehicles cover more than 3 million miles. You'll meet them all spick and span in their colours of brown and gold on practically every road in Britain. At Stonehenge, for example. At Mere on the road to Exeter. In Princes Street, Edinburgh, crossing the Scott Monument. Along the banks of Loch Lomond to Aberfoyle, deep in the Rob Roy country. To supply coastal pleasure steamers and the lochside villages. Or at the Glasgow docks, where the beer is shipped down the Clyde to Northern Ireland. As fast as the beer is bottled, crates are delivered to public houses, large and small, to off-licenses and licensed grocers everywhere, to clubs, hotels and restaurants. There is not a town or village of any size in the whole of the country where you can't get Whitbreads beer. It would in fact be difficult to find a place where it is not in demand. In all the refreshment bars and buffet cars on the British railway system, on the Golden Arrow to the continent, and on the cross-channel boats. On the Royal Sovereign and its sister ships, taking holidaymakers down London's river to Margate and Southend. At London's airport, while waiting for the aircraft you come to meet or by which you will travel. At haymaking, to support a tall story as essential stores for small craft on the river or on the Broads. Or again at those spectacular festivals and shows which enliven the pattern of our English life. At Royal Ascot, to celebrate a win or commiserate with a loser, or merely because you're thirsty. At Henley in its lovely riverside and woodland setting. In thousands of clubs throughout the country. Here, for example, is the concert hall at the Braunston Working Men's Club at Leicester, where a chairman preserves the atmosphere of the old-time music hall.
3 Whitbreads, 2 Max. Thank you, sir.
In this picture of distribution, we've left to the last one aspect of it which made this large-scale development possible, namely the trade enjoyed in Whitbread's own public houses. Today, Whitbreads own many hundreds of public houses in London, Kent, Sussex, Hampshire, Surrey and Bedfordshire, which are supplied either from London or from associated breweries at Wateringbury, and Hyde, the birthplace of Mackeson's Stout. Just 12 years after Samuel Whitbread had founded his brewery, he was exporting beer to Africa. And 100 years later, Whitbreads was being shipped to Calcutta, Singapore, Hong Kong, Melbourne, and Auckland. Beer for Belgium is conveyed in casks to the port of London, for Belgium is the company's most important single overseas market, in spite of 2 German occupations. It's shipped in small vessels across the Channel, up the Scheldt to Antwerp, and through the canals right into the heart of Brussels. Whitbreads have had their own bottling depots in Brussels and Antwerp since 1907. The casks are set up on the stillage in the reception room, from where the beer is pumped to the cold storage tanks. Beer for Belgium is more highly carbonated than for the home market. The Belgian likes his glass of beer to have a pronounced head. One of the things which intrigues the Belgian about Whitbread's Pale Ale is that it is clear to the last drop. In Belgium, as in England, it is considered a privilege to work for Whitbreads, and many of the operatives travel long distances to their work at the depots. From the depots, pale ale and stout are delivered in ever-increasing quantities to cafes, hotels, restaurants and provision shops in the towns and villages throughout Belgium. Whitbreads export to 32 countries. However exacting the extremes of climate, the beer stays consistent and in prime condition. It is enjoyed in every quarter of the globe. In Canada and the United States, South America and the Falklands, in Fiji and the Pacific Islands, Nigeria and Cape Town, Freetown and Sydney. No matter how distant a place may be or how difficult of access, where there is a demand, it will be met.
We all know what makes a good pub. A warm welcome, good atmosphere, fine ales and maybe some food. There is, however, rather more to it than that, as this film, House Proud, from 1948 demonstrates.
That's all the drinks, please.
Every landlord knows when to expect his peak trade. When orders come in thick and fast and all want serving at once, frequently just before closing time. This is the danger period, and speed of service may induce thoughtless acts. Be prepared. This is very good for the till, at least for the time being. But we're not here for the time being, we're here for good, for a living and to make money. And the best way of making money is to give the best service we possibly can. In this trade, the best service means scrupulous attention to little things, those small details that count for so much. The first essential is public hygiene. You probably noticed several things that were wrong in that busy scene. This is how 2 brown ales were served. It looks very impressive, but nobody likes the neck of the bottle washed in the beer. It's unhygienic, and look at the bottles in the beer sink. It was quite wrong to hold the glasses leaving fingerprints just where the customer's lips would be at the next moment. When glasses were in short supply, a quick swill was sometimes unavoidable, but today there is no excuse at all. Smoking while serving is unforgivable, even though the ash is flaked off before the customer sees it. Nor does a customer like a handful of wet change. Besides, it carries infection. You have your annoyances from the other side of the bar. The customer, although always right, can be a pain in the neck sometimes, especially over this sort of thing. But he can be trained, though nothing is more irritating than counter-rapping. As part of the good service to customers, the sale of sandwiches and bar snacks generally has become increasingly important. But food must always be protected to keep it from being coughed upon, breathed upon, or smoked upon, and to keep it fresh and appetizing. Transparent covers of all kinds are easy to obtain and prevent contamination. Food should never be touched by hand. Always handle with tongs or a knife and fork. Crown cork openers should be fixed away from the beer sink with a container below to catch the tops. A glass should always be held by the base or sides, never by the rim. The busier you are, the more frequently should the water be changed in the washing up sink. Beer is sticky stuff, and the glasses need washing, not just swilling in water. That's where infection commences. Polishing with a clean cloth is as important as washing. But we all know that ordinary washing is no use when it comes to the glass smeared with lipstick. That glass must be put aside for special scouring, and the cloth is of no further use until it's been laundered again, so watch for those smeared glasses. Many people can pour from 2 bottles at once as easily as from 1, but whichever way you do it, do remember no necks in the beer or touching the rim of the glass. Although the bottle was wiped when it was brought up from the cellar, a certain amount of dust and fumes have unavoidably contaminated the neck. That annoying incident of wet change would never occur if the counter were always wiped immediately anything is spilt on it. There is a right and a wrong way of drawing beer, but it is easy to slip into the wrong way, and then without thinking it becomes a habit. No ash can fall on this beer, as no smoking is the rule behind the bar. It does not take 10 seconds to empty an ashtray, wipe it, clean, and replace it. So, even if you have several, it will not take much time to have them always ready for use. The customer will generally use an ashtray if one is handy. You must have clean glasses, and you cannot have clean glasses without clean glass cloths. Order them in quantities, not just a few at a time. It will turn out much cheaper in the long run. Arrange to have them properly laundered, not just washed through in a hurry. That soon makes them look tired and grey. There is nothing a customer is more quick to notice than a clean array of fresh towels. A gas or steam-heated radiator is not a good substitute for a heated towel rail. A radiator harbours dust, which the wet cloth collects. Use a proper towel rail, a heated one if possible. Keep cloths for wiping glasses separate from those used for other purposes. In particular, keep those used for polishing glasses only for polishing. Cloths are usually available with coloured stripes in blue, red, yellow and green. Use cloths of one colour for one job. This will make them easy to identify in a hurry. You will find it more economical to start with a fresh supply of new cloths and to use them in rotation. They should be numbered and dated with marking ink for this purpose. A little thought will show you how to get the best use out of them.
Here are your towels, Bob.
You may not be old enough in the business to remember this type of cellar, but it's no faked-up scene. It was photographed exactly as it was in London recently. These old walls, occasionally whitewashed but never stripped, accumulated dirt and cobwebs. The pipes received scanty attention. Except when the pewterer called to mend a leak, they were left well alone. The modern cellar is a very different place. Every year, thousands of pounds are spent to ensure that beer is produced and delivered in as perfect condition as modern science can devise. Yet all this expense can be wasted through carelessness or lack of cleanliness if the vital link between cask and glass is at fault because the pipes and engines are not regularly and thoroughly cleansed. At least once a week, the engines and beer pipes should be soaked for not less than 2 hours with soda and warm water. 2 handfuls of soda to a 4-gallon bucket and well stirred. The pipe to be cleaned is disconnected from the barrel and the end placed in the solution. A signal is given to the barman at the engine, and the solution pulled through the whole system and left to soak. The longer, the better. Cleaning the appliances is just as important as cleaning the pipes. Plenty of hot water is essential in the cellar, especially for scrubbing the filter bags and for washing and scouring. Clean cloths are just as necessary in the cellar as they are in the other parts of the pub to wipe and dry the various appliances. Filtering the inevitable waste or beer from the pipes and engines emptied after closing time should be done as soon as possible. After filtering, the beer will be returned to the cask on sale through the return funnel. But before returning the filtered beer to the cask, the cellarman should draw a sample for testing by sight, smell, and taste. Not until these conditions have been fulfilled should the beer be returned to the cask for sale. At each stage, the utensil should be covered, either with a lid or a clean cloth. After a good soaking, the soda solution is drawn out of the pipes. With the system thoroughly cleansed, the connections to the beer engine are dismantled. Every part of the system is brushed throughout, including the nozzle, and all connections through to the top of the engine. The pipe from the beer sink into the cellar needs brushing through daily and flushing with warm water. With plugs removed, all pipes should be brushed through. After reconnecting the system, the pipe should be flushed with a solution of warm salt water, followed by flushing with plenty of warm water to remove every trace of the soda or saline solutions. Flexible pipes should be dismantled and taken to a bench for cleansing and brushing in the same manner. The importance of every detail of the cleaning routine in the cellar cannot be overemphasized. It has a direct influence on your trade. The landlord of the small pub who draws his beer from the wood, or even the one with a tiny cellar, may not have the problems of cellar management with which his colleagues in larger houses have to contend. There are 80,000 public houses in the country, but large or small, the principles of hygiene and cleanliness are the same. They even concern such apparent trifles as the sealing of casks. You help yourself and the brewery by seeing that empty casks are properly shived, corked and spiled. Immediately a new cask has been connected to the beer engine, make it a habit, there and then, to seal the empty cask you have just taken off. It's only a moment's job. You must remove your own tap from the cask, so why not shive and cork it at once? A tap with a mallet is enough for the spile. Now, when the cask is moved, your cellar remains sweet and clean. Each day, thousands of empties are returned to the brewery. On the unloading bank, a skillful twist of the wrist sends the cask bowling off for steam cleansing. But one cask not properly sealed can spread infection by attracting flies and bacteria. So please, seal the cask the moment it is emptied. To reduce the risk of infection, tests are occasionally made in public houses. The man in the white coat is a bacteriologist from the brewery. He is making a test of the water in a washing-up sink. Even the cotton wool plugs are sterilized in the flame each time they are handled. So meticulous is the care with which these tests are carried out. With his preparations completed, a sample is taken, and the neck of the flask and the plug again sterilized, and all is ready for the next stage. Glasses are tested with similar care. A sterile swab is taken from the flask with tweezers and wiped over the glass. By the use of hot water and a washing agent, bacteria found on a glass can be reduced to a moderately low figure. Boiling water would kill germs, but that would mean hot glasses and warm beer, which would not please the customers. But as the washing agent is more effective in hot water than in warm, water should be as hot as convenient and the glasses allowed to cool as they drain. The assistant, observing the same meticulous care, prepares a culture on the spot. This is done by placing a drop of water from the sample onto a sterilized plate and adding some warm nutrient agar, a jelly-like substance on which the organisms feed. The contents of the plate are swirled round to disperse them evenly throughout the jelly when it sets. In the laboratory in the brewery, the culture plates are placed in a warm temperature in an incubator for about 3 days. Usually about 60 to 80 tests are carried out in each house. At the end of 3 days, the samples we saw being taken are removed from the incubator, prepared for inspection in a viewer, and all particulars noted. Any organism that might be present has grown into a colony of many millions, some of which are visible to the naked eye. By electrical contact, these organisms can be counted to find out whether the presence of bacteria in the specimens is greater than normal. Some bacteria will always be present, even under the best conditions, and a person in normal health has no need to worry unduly about bacteria or germs, provided he keeps clean and ensures that his food and drink are clean as well. Here is an example of perfection, a practically clear plate, only possible under exceptional conditions. The next culture plate shows a moderately low number of organisms, which is to be expected under the best conditions. This is not so good. It shows what may happen if bottles are left in the beer sink, or a dirty cloth is allowed to contaminate the draining board, or the result of some other thoughtless action. But if this occurred, your trade would soon suffer. The bacteriologist is at work in your interests. It is because of the continuous war against bacteria that the daily routine of cleaning, scouring and polishing is so necessary. This daily clean-up is more than a mere routine. It is one of the most important jobs in any pub, and no part of it should be skimped. Little things like moving the drip pans before starting to clean the necks of the beer pools can be so easily overlooked. This is one of the places that first catches the customer's eye. He is registering impressions all the time, even if unaware that he is doing so.